As students, right, there's one particular letter of the alphabet that most of us used to dread, and that's the letter F. I'm sure you guessed right. Sometimes it even comes with numbers F1, F2, F3, like function keys on the keyboard, and the higher the number, I don't even know what's even the purpose of F9. Say, why don't you just put F? Why do you have to put F9? That's to tell the person you failed very well. But anyway, that's by the way. But yeah, we all don't like failure. That's what I'm trying to say. Everybody wants to succeed. Nobody likes to fail. And failure, I've come to learn, is a part of life. Yes, no matter how you kabash, no matter how you speak in tongues, you fast and pray, there are certain things you just fail at in life. I feel like that's a way of learning certain valuable lessons. I feel like there are some lessons you may not learn unless you fail at certain things, right? Um, Even for us as Christians, I think there's nobody in the Bible that didn't fail at something except Jesus Christ himself. And maybe Enoch in the Bible, because the Bible says Enoch walked with God. But even at that, they didn't really give us details, about his life. So maybe he did fail at something. But the point I'm trying to make is failure is a part of life, right? Failure is a part of life. Failure in itself is bad enough, but there are certain parts of failure that people don't really pay attention to. So failure sometimes is like a meal. When somebody eats a meal, sometimes there are leftovers, right? That you have to now throw away or give to the dogs, or you know trash when you're doing the dishes. And that's how failure is sometimes. Failure leaves certain things behind, and that's one of the dangers of failure. It's not just in the fact that sometimes you fail at certain things, it's in the things that failure leaves behind. And if you don't address those things, right, they can become a source of problem in the future, or they can affect you negatively in the future. So let's take a look at a couple of things that failure usually leaves behind. One of the things that failure leaves behind is fear, right? Fear. You feel like because you failed, you don't want to try again. You feel like you are not good enough. You are afraid of even putting your hands to do any other thing. Sometimes it doesn't just affect the thing you did at that time. Sometimes it affects, you know, any other thing you want to do in the future. So you did a business and it failed, and then you feel like you are not cut out for entrepreneurship. You feel like anything you do would fail because of that fear. You understand. You didn't pass an exam. Maybe you even wrote it twice and you failed twice, and you feel like you are an olodo. So olodo means that is like an insult, like in Nigeria, kind of like an offensive word in a sense. Somebody that is not intelligent, somebody that like a dummy. Yeah, that's the best synonym I can use for olodo. So you feel like you are an olodo, you're a dummy, like you're not intelligent and stuff like that. That's one thing that failure does. And sometimes it's not necessarily instant. Sometimes it is when you fail repetitively, right? Sometimes it's also instant. Maybe there's a people counted on you a lot, to deliver on certain things, and then you failed at it. And then that fear of trying again, comes up. And that is one of the deadliest leftovers that failure leaves, or that failure comes with most times. That's fear. And fear is crippling. Fear prevents you from expressing your uniqueness. It prevents you from achieving your goals. It prevents you from even dreaming big. There's some people that can't even dream big because they are scared. It has affected their mind so much that even just to dream, not even to do it, just to imagine yourself doing it, you can't, because fear has crippled you so much. And it's important for us to deal with that, and we're going to talk about how to deal with these things in a short while. So the second thing that failure leaves over is guilt, right? You keep blaming yourself, that if only you had read harder, if only you had prayed harder, if only you had fasted harder, if only you had studied harder, if only you had worked harder, all the harder, if only you had done everything harder. You beat yourself up so much, And sometimes it's maybe you should have worked harder. Maybe sometimes it's not necessarily because you didn't work hard enough, but sometimes this guilt just builds up. You just feel like it's all your fault, and you live in a constant cycle of blaming yourself, and it now traps you in the past. It makes you now start living in the past. And just like fear, it cripples your ability to move forward. It cripples your ability to advance. You start feeling guilty, and then you're not able to forgive yourself. You're now holding a grudge against yourself. You're now looking down on yourself. You are now seeing yourself as less of a person because you believe you messed up big time. And hey, maybe you actually did mess up big time, but you know what you have to do? You have to move on, because even the most successful people in life mess up. It's part of life. It's part of what happens in life. We mess up. That's why we even need God. If we were so perfect, we would not need God, right? The fact that we are not perfect is one of the reasons why we need God to help us, right? We need the help of the Holy Spirit. That's even one prayer, I feel like every Christian should pray, often. Help me, Lord, help me, Father, help me. But that's by the way. So guilt is one thing that failure leaves behind, and you have to be aware of these things, because awareness is where solutions start from. If you are not aware of a certain problem, you can't even solve it. It will just be there hidden, and it just be causing problem, just being a nuisance somewhere. You get? So awareness is the first step to dealing with these things. So you have to sit down, and be aware that, okay, you're dealing with fear and you're dealing with guilt, and sometimes, in most cases rather, it's actually a result of failure, either one-time failures or consistent failures over time. So what are the steps to removing these leftovers, to dealing with this leftover? Number one, I'll say stop blaming yourself. Guy, forgive yourself. My sister, forgive yourself. I know if you had worked harder, I know if only you did this right, if only you did that right, okay, maybe you were robbed, if only you didn't go out that day. I mean, all sorts of things. That's a trick of the enemy. That's a trick of the devil to keep you where you are. Shine your eyes, open your eyes, and see it for what it truly is. Shine your eyes, as we say in Nigeria. Shine your eyes very well, because if you've not come to that awareness of that, of the fact that this is a trick of the enemy, you will not solve the problem. So stop blaming yourself. Forgive yourself. Forgive yourself. Most times we forgive people, but we hold grudges against our own self. You treat yourself like trash. You just look at yourself in the mirror and you can't stand to even see your own reflection, because of something you did in the past, a mistake you made in the past. You are not kind to yourself. So that's the first step. Stop blaming yourself. Forgive yourself. I'm not saying you should not accept responsibility, but move on. Accept responsibility. Yes, it happened. I did that. It was a mistake. If I had known better, I would have done better. Now I'm going to learn from it, and I'll do my best with the help of the Holy Spirit to make sure it doesn't happen again, and move on with life, right? It doesn't mean don't accept responsibility for it. It just means forgive yourself and stop blaming yourself for it. Number two, reflect and re-educate yourself. So it's important to reflect, because you don't want to make the same mistake twice, right? You don't want to make the same mistake twice, or not necessarily twice, but you don't want to keep repeating the same mistakes. So you have to reflect and find out, okay, what could I have done better? What was I supposed to do that I didn't do? Where did I get it wrong? In that sense, what contributed to me failing, or what led to this failure? What are the things, the actions, the steps I could have avoided? What are the things I could have done better? What are the structures I could have set? What are the people that were around my life that helped me fail? Because sometimes you need bad friends to help you fail. You understand? Sometimes you can't successfully fail by yourself. You need people who actually want you to fail to help you fail. So analyze everything, reflect, and re-educate yourself. So re-educate yourself in the sense that learn, what you're supposed to learn. If it's a professional exam, okay, maybe you're failing a particular course or a particular part of it. Okay, re-educate yourself. Why are you failing that particular course? You may need to take extra lessons there, you may need to go for extra tutorials, you may need to study that part harder. Re-educate yourself. Re-educate yourself, because you can't just wing your way, from bouncing back from failures. In fact, generally, one thing I've come to learn and realize in life, that you can wing your way through childhood, but you can't wing your way through adulthood. You have to make intentional decision. You have to make intentional choices. You have to think about every decision that you make, because our lives, right, is basically the total or the sum of the decisions we've made over time. There are certain decisions, there are certain things you can't control, right? But most times, the things you can control, determine the amount of effect that the things we can't control will have on us, right? So you have to re-educate yourself and reflect. Don't waste failure. Don't waste failure. Don't just fail and say I failed. Learn from your failures. Learn from your failures. And that's kind of how technology keeps improving. You see, somebody releases a particular product, a technological product, and people complain that, okay, whenever I do this happens and all the stuff. The next version of that product, you'd see that they have fixed that thing, or they've addressed that particular issue. That's how we're supposed to move in life too. When you fail in certain areas, don't just move on like that. Reflect and re-educate yourself, and be intentional about it. Don't just leave it to chance. And point number 2 is, you can successfully fail. that's an irony, right? Successfully fail. So success and failure in the same sentence. So you can't successfully fail without, the wrong set of friends. So you have to expose yourself to the right environment. So the right environment doesn't necessarily mean your physical environment. It could be a part of it, but your environment in terms of who has access to your mind, because your mind is where the decisions are being made. Your mind basically is the powerhouse of your life, you understand, is where the things that matter exist. So exposing yourself to the right environment means having the right kind of friends, watching the right kind of movies, listening to the right podcast and the right tapes. Tapes, I don't know who uses tapes these days. Anyway, you get the gist when I say tapes. So listening to the right podcast, listening to sermons that build you up, just giving your mind enough reason to want to succeed. You understand? Not just if you are a student, for instance, and you are always around people who don't go for classes, who don't go for lectures, who don't study, who don't even take their education seriously. No matter how strong you are living at a risk, because there's a high chance that you'll be influenced to join them. Maybe one day you can just decide to not go for lecture and all this stuff. I'm not saying some people are not strong enough to resist that temptation, but hey, it's better you avoid temptation than resist it. The best way to overcome temptation is to avoid it in the first place. So expose yourself to the right environment, have the right kind of friends, have right kind of mentors. Don't have a mentor that talks down on your dreams, that you want to achieve something and they'll be like, are you sure you're not moving too fast? Yes, sometimes you may be moving too fast, maybe, but you have to ensure that they're actually speaking the truth and not trying to stifle your growth or to prevent you from growing more than them. So expose yourself to the right environment, and this would help you to deal with failure left over. So as you expose yourself to the right environment, as you hear the right things, as you see good examples, it will give you a reason enough to want to try again. It will inspire you to want to succeed. It would even take away the fear, or even if you don't take away the fear completely, to give you the courage to act in spite of the fear and the guilt. And number 3, accept it and move on. It's kind of similar to the first point on stop blaming yourself, but accept it. Stop denying the fact that you messed up. Stop denying the fact that you failed. Accept it. Yes, I messed up. Yes, I could have graduated with a first class, but I did not, and it's because I did not study hard. Yes, I could have taken advantage of this business, but I did not. So just accept it and move on. Don't stop trying to live in the past. Stop trying to live in the sense that, oh, I wish I did this. I wish I did this doesn't make any difference. It's what you're doing now that makes the difference, and what you're going to do in the future that makes the difference. So accept it, move on. Then lastly, number 4, audit yourself. Like, have an internal audit from time to time. Have an internal audit from time to time. Whenever maybe you set a goal and you notice that, okay, you're finding it hard to walk towards this goal, you're finding it hard to walk towards that dream, you're finding it hard to do something, have that introspection within yourself and think and say, okay, what is the why am I so laid back concerning this thing? Is it a lack of interest, or is it a matter of fear and guilt? Is it a matter of failure, leftovers? You understand? Because when you have that honest conversation with yourself, then you are able to deal with it. Like we mentioned, you can't solve something you're not aware of. You can't solve a problem that you're not aware is a problem in the first place. And then lastly, it's important to throw away the leftovers when it's still in its seed form. So whenever you experience a failure or even anything that leads to that fear or that guilt building, don't allow it build. Don't allow it become a stronghold, because the longer it stays and the longer it builds, the harder it is to tear down. So it's important to be on the lookout. So basically be watchful, right? You don't want to allow those leftovers stay behind. It's just like leftovers in real life. When you leave food for a long time, before maggots start forming there, and before it gets worse, and they can spread into the whole kitchen and cause more damage than just that single leftover. But it all starts from there. So basically you want to deal with these things without allowing them to grow. So you have to be watchful, you have to be discerning, and you have to be honest with yourself, right? So that's the last point, guys. You have to make sure you cut it short when it's still in its seed form, and don't feed it, don't allow it to grow, don't allow it to become a stronghold where you now have to fight so hard to deal with it. So I hope with these points you've been able to be aware and deal with failure leftovers. So don't just focus on the failure, to be careful to observe that the ripple effects, the leftovers of these failures, don't go unnoticed and hinder you from achieving your goals and making progress in your life. So guys, that's it from me for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed this and I hope you were blessed by it. Do well to like, share, subscribe and comment, and also say a prayer for me too whenever you can, because we all need prayers, right? So guys, till I come your way next time, I've been your humble host, Blessed Patrick. Cheers, and see you guys on the next one.